Namaste. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita, you find in many ways the same teaching taught again and again and again. It seems repetitive, but what Krishna is doing is showing it from different angles. And what I have tried to do in these talks is also showing the truth from different angles, because when you do that, some people understand it from this angle but not from that. Some people understand it from that angle but not this. And so in this way you cover all fronts, you might say. But it's important to understand that although there is much repetition here, that one truth, you could simply say, I know in Autobiography of a Yogi, Sri Yukteswar, my guru's guru, is saying that people think that they have understood more when they can be very complex. It's their ego they're feeding. He said, what more do you need than God? Just that one word, God. But of course you can't cover the whole Gita with just that one word, God. So when you're talking to people, you have to talk to their understanding. And you have to talk to their realities, where they are, what difficulties they're going through. And so in my own talks too, I've had to repeat myself on certain points, repeat certain stories and so on. All these are necessary because it's the only way to really get through to cover all fronts, you might say, or all bases. So in these teachings now, Krishna is saying things that we've heard before in this teaching, in this scripture. In verse 7 of chapter 5, no taint of karmic entanglement remains for him who has been purified by right action and engaged in divine communion, yoga, has dissolved his ego in infinity, achieved victory over the senses, and realized himself as one with the self of all. Well, Krishna is listing quite a few things, and if you think of them separately, you start, I've got to do this, now I've got to do that, now I've got to do the other. What you must try to do in your own spiritual path is somehow unite the whole thing into one, so that whereas on the other hand, on the one hand you're giving up things, on the other hand you're embracing. All these different teachings, they all become one. He says, has purified himself by right action. Well, you have to do right, yes, but you also have to commune with God by yoga. You have to dissolve your ego in the infinite to achieve victory over the senses, realize yourself as one with the self. All of these things seem separate as long as you're looking at them from outside. But when you go into the inside, you see that this all begins from one little center. So what we need to do to understand the Gita, to understand the spiritual path, and above all to understand ourselves, is go as the teaching is, God is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. And just as a body is created by a sperm and ovum beginning to create the whole body, a tree grows ring by ring, year by year, and becomes larger, but everything always begins at the center. So we must try in our understanding of the scriptures to penetrate to that center. We have to get to the heart of it all. And this we can do as we think of all these as one simple thing. It's not a complex path at all if you do that. But if you're thinking, well, I've got to not eat this and not drink that and do this and do that, it's not so easy. And so he says, see, who in a state of union with God has cognized the truth, fully understands, I myself do nothing at all. And the center of everything is shunya. You know, people in the West think that the Muslims brought the Arabic numerals and the zero and algebra even to the West. It was not they. When they came to India, they took these from India. But it was the shunya is the center of everything. This is the key to higher mathematics. You need that zero. And it was India who discovered these things. India in a higher yuga. And so, he who in the state of union with God has cognized the truth and fully understands, I myself do nothing at all. Well, obviously, when you're acting, you're doing things, aren't you? And you can't not do them by being completely inactive. You have to understand that it's his energy that works through you that brings that inspiration. And what is that finally? It's life. Somebody who's dull and has no life, you present him with any problem, I don't know. You must have energy. This is why in Dwapara Yuga there's more energy. This is an age of energy. And people understand that really the difference between a genius and a stupid person is that the genius has more energy. Well, I would say it this way too, that the same energy is coming into our planet, but some people are more open to it, can use it, other people are more closed to it. So you don't only open yourself to that energy, but you put willpower to use that energy. But still, it's just that flow of energy. And that same energy can produce a great painting, a great mathematical solution, a great business decision, anything that you want to do. Finally, it goes back to that simple word, energy. And if you let that energy flow through you, you will find that the more energy you use, Master said, the greater the willpower, the greater the flow of energy. So this again is why action is so necessary. We have to generate that energy, get the truth and the divine inspiration flowing through us. If we don't use willpower to do these things, then we can't succeed. So we have to act, we have to reason, I will reason, I will will, I will act. But we have to ask God to guide our reason, will, and activity to the right path in everything. We have to do our best. And this is the reason for Karma Yoga. If you don't, those faculties will become quiescent. You become a great artist by painting. And not only that, but you can't judge a great work of art while the artist is still in the act of painting. You can't expect, just as he puts a few daubs on a piece of canvas or paper, you can't expect it to sort of stand back and say, well, I think it should go this way or that way. Well, the artist will say, let me finish. Then you can find out what it is I'm trying to do. And so it is, you can't really know what your own destiny is until finally you've completed the whole thing. We don't know in the beginning whether we're going north, south, east, or west. We don't know what direction we're going. But we finally discover that north, toward the brain, is better for us, and south is worse for us. And so gradually we get a sense of direction. Gradually we get a sense of commitment. And the more we find, and this is why the path takes a long time. In the beginning you have to go by faith. And you decide, well, everybody says it's a good thing to do, so maybe I'll do it. But bit by bit, as you find the results coming, then you change your mind and you put your whole energy into it. Now, I was brought up in church. As a Christian, I was in the Anglican church. And I went through all the motions and so on. But gradually I found it was not working for me. It wasn't giving me any peace of mind. It was just a lot of ritual and mumbo-jumbo. And I remember I said to my mother, who was very religious herself, I said to her at the age of 16 or 17, I'm not going to come to church with you anymore. And she wept. She was so unhappy. She said, how it hurts me to think that my own son is going to hell. And a few days later she came back. She said she'd read something in some book that said that the renunciation of God, rejection of God, is often the first step toward finding him more sincerely. And I said, you have understood. Because I wasn't rejecting God, but I was rejecting that way to God. When I came to my guru, a brother of mine wrote to me and said, couldn't you have found a monastery in your own church? Well, those monks were dead spiritually. There was no life in them. But when I met Yogananda, I found everything I'd been looking for. So your right path has to be that which suits you. And your right action has to be that which suits you. You have to do these things with full energy and full willpower. And if things are given to you too easily, then you may not put the effort into it. If it weren't for the tests that you have to endure in life, you may begin to start sliding. You need the tests, you need suffering, you need difficulties. And I have to say that the difficulties that I have been the greatest blessings that I could possibly imagine. Even those tests which seem to be destroying my own spiritual efforts were simply sent by God to direct me in the way that I should go. This is important, that you have the faith to say, God, I give everything to you. He won't steer you wrong. But if, owing to wrong samskars, you find yourself going in the wrong direction, if you keep listening, then you will find that gradually He will bring you to the right path. And I was thinking of a story in my own life where I had decided that I wanted to just go off and meditate. Well, my guru had told me to serve his work and write books and so on. He counted on me for this. But my superiors had told me I mustn't do anything. And I thought, well, I don't want to do wrong. And so I decided to go to Mexico because it's cheaper there and to become a hermit. And I had to go back to San Francisco because it was Christmas and I thought I would spend my time with my family, with my parents, before then going back. And Dr. Chaudhary, I was at a party with him just on New Year's Eve. And it was Saturday night. And the next day, Sunday, he fell over with a heart attack in the middle of his sermon. And I phoned his wife, Bina, and I said, I know that you must be wondering how to keep things going without him. I said, if you want me to stay here, then I'll be happy to. And she said, oh, thank God. We wanted your help, but we didn't want to interrupt your wishes to go and to Mexico and be a hermit. And so please, can you? And we'd be very pleased. So I spent my time serving him that way and helping him. And in the process, I was shown my own right direction. And so God corrected me, even through his heart attack, which of course was unfortunate for him, though he did recover. But the thing is, you will find that if you give your life seriously to God, if you keep asking, now, you may receive the inspiration, as I've said before, to go north. Don't take that as absolute. You may get to the next corner, and then the inspiration, if you were still listening, could tell you to go right or left. So always keep your mind open to that inner guidance. It will show you gradually which way you should go. And if your samskars try to pull you back from that, if you sincerely are asking God to guide your life, He will gradually direct you. My way of meeting Dr. Chaudhary was even a divine blessing, because my parents were invited to a party, and they asked me if I wanted to come, and I wasn't interested in those things. I was living with them because I had no choice, but I didn't want to go to a party. But then I thought, well, what am I to do? All I'm doing is lying on my bed here and looking at the ceiling and praying for death. Let me just see if maybe God has some answer for me. And I went there, and that's where I met the Chaudharys. And when I started talking Bengali to them, they found that I wasn't just able to say hello and goodbye and so on, I could talk it. And so they became very interested, and then they found out my name. Then they said, oh, they'd enjoyed my music, and would I come and sing? So anyway, I've talked about this before, but what this did was open up, and I've seen again and again, if a door closed, if I was praying deeply to God, another one opened. And in fact, it was He often who closed that door. So don't let anything persuade you that you don't know God's will. You do know His will if you give it to Him. He will take you in the right direction, whether by the scruff of your neck or walking willingly. But if you really are sincere in wanting to serve Him and give your life to Him, He will be there guiding you. And whatever happens, then, but never presume on that guidance. That's what I say. Keep in mind that it may change, just as when you're going down a ski slope, you know your goal is to get to the bottom of the slope. But you may have to turn left or right, depending on the bumps in the road and the obstacles and so on. So in life too, there will come obstacles, and you have to discriminate. And this is why the path to God is not easy. You have to discriminate. Are they obstacles or are they opportunities? Are they something I should go with, or should I accept that it isn't God's will that I do it? When I was starting Ananda, it was a very difficult thing. I had to earn all that money myself. And there were so many people who tried to pull me down. And some people were saying, well, with all these obstacles and difficulties, how do you know God wants you to do this? And I said, well, I know in my heart, but I can only do my best. If I fail, then okay, I accept that failure. But I have never made success my criterion of what I was trying to do. I was trying to do it because I wanted God. And I said, I will keep on doing it until God shows me not. And they said, but isn't he showing you? Look at all the obstacles you have. It's almost impossible to overcome those things. And I said, no, I don't feel it yet in my heart. I feel that God wants me to proceed. And there were so many things that could easily have destroyed us. But I found always that something came along at the last minute and we were saved. I told you that beautiful story of how the lumber company nearby put a lien on my property and then threatened foreclosure. And I asked him how long it would take, and the lawyer said to me, well, it would take 2 months before we could actually bring this to trial, and then we'd have to go through all that rigmarole in the court. And I said, well, I just have to do what I feel is right. And if you want to take my land from me, okay, but I have to keep trying. And I was at a group meeting, and so after this meeting, somebody said, do you accept donations? I said, surely. I was expecting him to give me $5 or $10. He leaned over the car hood and wrote a check for $3,000. God always came through, although it looked from moment to moment many times as if I would absolutely have to fail. There was no chance of success. And yet always, so don't let obstacles make you think this is God's will. As long as you feel guided in your heart, do what you feel you must do. And in the end, he will support you and he will give you your success. Joy to you.